Hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here. I'm dressed most casually, and what a delight to be here for the live stream. It's been such a busy week, I can't even tell you. Last week, Rebel News went to the leaders' debates in the election, and it's such a strange creature, that leaders' debates, because Justin Trudeau, for obvious reasons, nationalized the debates when he took office 10 years ago. For, for all recorded time, during Canadian elections, both at the federal, provincial, and indeed municipal level, debates are normal. They happen spontaneously, they happen by media outlets, they happen by community groups. In the United States, they're often different channels have a debate, Fox News or CNN or ABC. Sometimes they're done in concert with a big university. The idea that the government would take it over and turn it into some sort of a government commission and a government agency. No one ever asked for that. No one wanted that. The government isn't an expert on putting on debates. I remember in the 2015 debates, there was even different think tanks that would have debates. There was a foreign policy think tank, I forget the name of it right now. And you could criticize them and you could say this was better than that one, but why would anyone think the government would be better at that than the private sector? Well, the obvious reason is not to make them better, silly. The reason that Justin Trudeau nationalized the the election debates, was so he could control who came and went. He could control who was allowed on the stage. He could control what journalists participated, even what politicians participated. And so it came to be, and you know the story, in 2019, they excluded Rebel News. But of course they didn't. At the time, they excluded one of our friends in the independent media space called True North. We went to court. And here's the important thing. If it had been a private sector broadcast, if it had been CTV or CBC on their own, having a debate on their own, and they kept Rebel News out of the crowd, it might be in poor taste by them. It might be outside the public spirit. It might be, it might actually be against some sort of competition law. But we wouldn't be able to avail ourselves, I don't think, I could be wrong, of the Charter of Rights. We couldn't go to court and say, Your Honor, the government is picking their friends and their enemies here. Tell them to stop discriminating, because the Charter of Rights and Freedoms generally applies only to government actors. And so the fact that Trudeau set up this government-run debate commission was his undoing. He thought he could just bully everyone because that's how a liberal thinks. But he didn't count on the court saying, well, what criteria would you use to kick out Rebel News that wouldn't apply to, say, the Toronto Star or the CBC? I mean, tell me a rule that kicks out Rebel News but doesn't kick them out. We're 100% Canadian owned. We cover daily news. We're independent. No one is our boss. We're strong advocates of things, but so is the CBC. So is the Toronto Star. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but the Toronto Star actually has hardwired into their corporate bylaws something called the Atkinson Principles. Can you just Google that and throw that on the screen? The Atkinson Principles it's named after some very early publisher of the Toronto Star, and they commit the Toronto Star to being a socialist enterprise. For all time, the Toronto Star, according to its own rules, has to support the nationalization of the means of production, has to support government ownership of factories, government ownership of transportation. It's really like straight out communist. There it is. The Atkinson Principles. Read more about, can you make it a tiny bit bigger so I can read that a little easier? Yeah, about the progressive values that have provided the Toronto Star's intellectual foundation for more than a century. Scroll down just a little bit. So that's Atkinson there. Throughout his 50 years as publisher of the Star, Atkinson developed strong views on the role of a large city newspaper, blah, blah, blah. Belief in a progressive newspaper, justice, social, economic, political, legal, or racial. Scroll down a little bit more because a little bit further. Does it go a little? Yeah. It looks a bit cut off. And that was a 2008 article, but they literally talk about owning like power companies and owning, you know, private vehicle. Like it's crazy talk. It's outright we don't need to show anymore. It's outright communism. That is the official purpose of the Toronto Star. So don't tell me that Rebel News is different. Yeah, throw that on the screen there. I want to list those bullet points. Look at this here. A strong, united, and independent Canada, social justice, individual and civil liberties, community and civic engagement, the rights of working people, the necessary role of government. And then it goes down and details them. Like they literally talk about, you know, the proletariat and taking over the means of protection. Thanks, we don't need to show anymore. So yeah, that was a bit of a detour, but my point is, the government went to court and said, no, Rebel News their opinions are too strong, and so we don't allow them in. And we said to the judge, well, here's 10 other media companies, and here's proof of how advocacy-oriented they are. And the judge said to the government, you're right, you cannot play favorites. If it's a public thing, if this truly is in the interest of the public that you've nationalized these debates, everyone's allowed in. And so it was actually a shocking blow for liberty. Liberty was one of my best days ever at Rebel News. We were allowed in. And so they studied that court ruling. The government lost in 2019, and they spent 2 years not thinking about what they had done wrong in terms of repairing themselves and becoming better people. They studied that court ruling in 2019 and thought, how do we game the system? How do we reverse engineer banning Rebel News to comply with the judge? I remember the judge in that first case said, you didn't post all the rules in detail enough. So they had super detailed rules. They said, when you fired Rebel News, you only have a one-line explanation. So they gave us, if I recall, it was an 11-page explanation. And when they banned us, some guy who wasn't even in the government sent us the email. So they made sure the right guy sent us the email. So they spent 2 years studying what they did wrong in 2019 and banned us again in 2021. And back to court, we won. And we won again. And we won harder and bigger and better. So here it is, 2025. And the Debates Commission, well, do they really want to go back a third time? Imagine the federal court seeing the Debates Commission again and them saying, we don't want Rebel News. And the court would say, you are being disobedient. This is bordering on contempt of court. We have told you twice you can't discriminate just because you don't like them. You can't do that. And I don't know if you can find a clip in short order, Ephraim, but it was sort of incredible to see Michel Cormier, the head of the Debates Commission, basically say it would be illegal for us to kick them out because he did this circuit. He did so many media interviews last week, and every mainstream media type was like beating him up and saying, why didn't you block them? Why didn't you stop them? And he sounded like a whiny little boy. Yeah, that's a perfect one. Play this one. This is a great little, this is a French language radio exchange, but it's got subtitles. Play this clip. This is, I think this was from Radio Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So this was French language CBC radio. Here, take a listen.
And also to defend himself, Michel Cormier, the General Director of the Leaders Debates Commission. Mr. Cormier, hello. So how come there were 5 journalists there? I'm using quotation marks, who represented this media last night.
But because we lost 2 cases in court in 2019 and 2021, because it's important to know that we had tried to prevent Rebel News from participating in these press conferences. Because I agree with Chantal that they are not journalists, as we understand it, but we lost those 2 cases. And for months, we've been communicating through our lawyers with Rebel and their lawyers to try to limit the number of journalists. So rather than risk another trial that we would surely lose, because with the previous 2, it would have been impossible to win this one. We did. We gave them 5 passes for the press conferences. There are still many journalists. The other media also have passes that can be exchanged. A journalist from an organization can ask a question, leave the line, hand his badge to a journalist, his colleague from the same organization. So the same thing happened in 2021, except it was more over the phone because of COVID. But at that time, the court had told us you must accredit 11 journalists from Rebel. So those are court orders. It's hard not to obey them. So that causes what we saw yesterday. We'll see today if there's a way to try to better manage traffic for tonight for the English debate.
What does that mean, better manage the traffic?
No, but to see if we can, I don't know. We will explore options with the producer then.
Okay, but the 5 there, what's it based on?
It's based on the fact that
You say last time we were forced to have 11. Now we allowed 5 journalists to attend based on what?
well, based on if, for example, we had said we did the evaluation and thought that 5 was still half of 11, then that would probably work. Otherwise, we didn't want to end up in court with another judgment forcing us to accredit even more. Is that it?
What a little weasel. He admits everything. He says he hates Rebel News. He said he did everything he could to stop us. He said he doesn't think we're journalists. But underneath all the levels of weasel, there was a little grain of truth, like the size of a piece of rice or a grain of sand, underneath everything he said, which is, had they done what all the mean girls in the CBC were saying, stop Rebel News, why did you let them in? How come you did that? Why couldn't you just stop? You take away all the weasel words, all the whining and complaining. Michel Cormier, that's the head of the Debates Commission, said the truth under all of it, which was because it would have broken the law. And they didn't really feel like being lawbreakers. So I have to give him this much credit. He knew that what the mean girls of the press gallery were saying was illegal. And he agreed with them and he sympathized with them and he thinks we're not real journalists. And really, who wouldn't want to live in a country where the government gets to decide who is or isn't a journalist? And that's my point from the very beginning. Justin Trudeau thought he was so flippin' smart by nationalizing the debates, but don't you see? That is what put it under the standard. The government cannot bully people just because the journalists want them to. It was so gross to watch all these other journalists gang up on Rebel News. And it was sort of fun to see someone who agreed with them, Michel Cormier, say, look, guys, what can I do? I'm going to lose court case number 3. That would have been amazing. And I won't lie, part of me was sort of looking forward to going to court and giving them a drubbing, making it a three-peat. I mean, how often do you get to do that? But in the end, he took the coward's way out. So look at these two opposing forces. On the one hand, the mean girls saying you've got to stop Rebel News, and him saying, yeah, I agree with you. On the other hand, the court, the Charter of Rights, the Constitution, two cases saying you cannot discriminate. And like I say, you can't find a way to only kick out Rebel News without tripping the wire for everyone else. So you know what he did? You know that little weasel did? He canceled the English language scrum. So after the debates, all the politicians were supposed to come in for a scrum. And instead of letting Rebel News have a few questions, and we would have had 2 or 3 probably, they canceled the whole thing. The only purpose of the Debates Commission, it's like that meme, you had one job. They had one job, have a debate with a Q&A afterwards, and he would rather nuke the whole thing than allow the peasants at Rebel News to ask some questions. By the way, I should tell you, Mark Carney took 2 questions from independent media, not from us, but from others, and he did fine with the questions. And we actually put a question to Blanchette, that's the head of the Bloc Québécois, and he answered quite friendly, in English, no less, and it was a substantive answer. I might not agree with his answer, but he answered us. I mean, Jagmeet Singh is a bit of a racist. He wouldn't answer the question by the only black woman in the room, Drea Humphrey. He looked down his nose at her, and it was sort of a gross moment where he mansplained to her that she's not allowed to ask questions. He was pretty gross. But let's be honest, Jagmeet Singh is sort of dumb. I mean, he's really cool. I'll grant you that. He's really good at TikTok videos, but he's sort of dumb. And I think by saying, I'm not going to talk to Rebel News, that lets him avoid answering tough questions. When I say he's sort of dumb, he just sort of is. Is there a single policy out there that you can say Jagmeet Singh really knows his stuff? there was an interesting little statistic that the debate showed of how many minutes of talk time each candidate had. And to their credit, I thought the debate itself was quite well run, by the way, both the English and the French. The French debate, they tallied up how many minutes and seconds each candidate got. And Jagmeet Singh's was way down low because the guy is not built for debating. He's not really built for ideas or answering tough questions. So I think one of Jagmeet Singh's strategies for avoiding embarrassment is to say, oh, I don't like that journalist, so I'm not going to answer that completely legit question. Anyhow, I want to show one of the videos that one of the questions to Jagmeet Singh, I say again, it was our own Drea Humphrey. And she asked a question about the anti-Christian crime wave in Canada. I talk a fair bit about the anti-Semitic crime wave in Canada, torching of synagogues, smashing glass, shooting up a girls' school. Like there's this very serious crime wave against Jewish institutions, but there's also one against Christian institutions. And thank God it hasn't had anyone harmed yet. But over 200 Christian churches have been vandalized or even burnt. You might recall a few weeks ago, I went out to Winnipeg to film a church that had been totally torched. So Drea Humphrey, who is herself Christian, and by the way, Black and Indigenous, asked a question to Jagmeet Singh. And I want to show the question, but Efron, I also want to show Rosemary Barton's response to it. So here's Drea's question, which was an excellent question. The CBC hated this question. I'll show you how. Take a look.
Hello, Mr. Singh. Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Your party takes great pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online.
Sorry, I didn't get your outlet.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party.
You know where I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
Wow. Your party takes pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online hate speech. Yet you stay silent about ongoing attacks against Christians, even after Conservative MP Jamil Javani's order paper question revealed that over 200 churches have been targeted by arson and vandalism since claims of remains being discovered at former residential schools swept the nation in 2021. These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not. Will you condemn the rise in acts of hate against Christians today and explain what your party will do moving forward to keep Christians safe from hate in Canada?
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News. So no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
Wow. What she said had no misinformation.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's enough for that clip. So he called that misinformation and disinformation. And so did Rosemary Barton, my doppelganger at CBC. Do you have that clip of Rosemary Barton just raging against Drea? Drea has been on this. She actually went to Kamloops to look into the allegation of mass graves. She actually bumped into the chief and talked to the chief. Okay, take a look at Rosemary Barton describing Drea's question as factually false. Take a look.
I think we have to sort of address the elephant in the room. How are these people chosen to answer these questions? And I don't know if either one of you have an answer for that, but I think there will be people at home saying, some of these seem like odd questions. Some of them aren't getting answered. How come we've heard so often from this one particular outlet? Any idea what's going on there?
There's three right-wing, very right-wing media, we can call them media, websites that are present in there. They get in line to ask a question like anybody else. Their accreditation has been approved by the Commission of Debates, and so they get the right to stand in line and ask a question that they choose to ask. In this case, you saw Mr. Singh, and this has been his position for some time, to refuse to answer questions. Rebel News in particular traffics in misinformation, facts, lack of facts, and as you heard in that question, which was woven with some truth and some things that weren't true. Yes, there have been burnings of Christian Catholic churches. Yes, there have been remains of Indigenous children found in various places around the country, which she misrepresented. We'll see if Mr. Poilievre gets any questions.
Well, in fact, Mr. Polyev did get questions from Rebel News, 2 questions asked by Sheila Gunn Reid, and they were great questions. There's some sort of weird implication there that we don't ask tough questions of Pierre Polyev. But let me bring your attention to something that I just discovered today, which is a correction. Do you have that handy, Efron? The official correction on the CBC's website. Now, you can see it right there. Scroll down a little bit. It's they made the correction on the 17th. They said, on April 16th, during a live broadcast following the French language federal election leaders debate on CBC News Network, Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton said, quote, yes, there have been remains of Indigenous children found in various places across the country. As CBC News has reported on multiple occasions, what several Indigenous communities across Canada have discovered on the sites of some former residential schools are potential burial sites or unmarked graves. So there have been no unmarked graves that have been found, because none of this, I mean, the accusation has been made by airheads like Jagmeet Singh and Rosemary Barton, but none of them have been found yet. So she was lying, or maybe she's just dumb. I don't know which one's a better one. Are you lying? Like, did you know it was a lie and you said it on purpose? Or are you just that dumb? You're the chief political correspondent for the state broadcaster, and you don't know your basic facts about an incredibly large issue. But imagine the chutzpah to call Drea the misinformation peddler in a fact check. You position yourself as a fact checker. The CBC did more fact checking of Rebel News at the debates than they did of Mark Carney, who they're championing for obvious reasons. He said, far from cutting the CBC as Pierre Polyev has promised to do, he's going to give them a boost in spending. Rosemary Barton is a disgrace. The CBC is a disgrace. They lied about Drea. Much more importantly, they lied about the truth. They lied about Indigenous graves. And they don't, you know what? We get things wrong once in a while. We occasionally publish corrections, and even occasionally we publish apologies, as in we didn't just get it wrong in a neutral way. We got it wrong in a way that hurt someone. Every once in a while, we publish an apology. It doesn't happen often because we take getting our facts accurately very seriously. But every once in a while, we have an apology, a retraction, a correction, whatever. You'll notice that so-called correction did not say who they were smearing. They couldn't bring themselves to say it was Drea and Rebel News who got it right. And second of all, they didn't tweet this. Rosemary Barton didn't retweet this. They buried this on a page of the CBC that no one ever goes to. That shows their mind, doesn't it? You know, they're not glad to be corrected. They're not happy that the truth came out because they prefer the lies because it suits their agenda. Anyhow, what a day it was. What a couple of days. And Rebel News just smashed it. And I got to tell you, it was such a team feeling. I was so proud of our people. And what you couldn't see in that Drea Humphrey clip, and I mentioned this that night, I don't know if you saw my live stream comments. One thing Rosemary Barton said accurately is there's a ton of other journalists in the room. 100, 150, somewhere between 100 and 150. Let's say 120. And anyone can get in line. So we just got in line, and 4 out of the 5 of us had questions. I actually was the only guy on our team that didn't move fast enough to get in line. The CBC had 4 questions too. There were 17 questions asked. We had 4, CBC had 4, and the other guys had the rest. And we just moved a little bit faster than the other guys. You know, how about work a little harder if you want to beat Rebel News? They're so lazy because they've never really had true competition before. I don't know if you remember that clip where it was David Cochran, the bald guy, Rosemary Barton, my separated at birth twin, and then there was a commentator on the other side, Adrian Arsenault, who said, some viewers at home might find these questions to be odd. What? Who the hell are you to say that? She was objecting to the substance of our questions, as if and there was an extended conversation to that effect. And they were basically saying, how dare you ask things that we don't approve of? Literally, who the hell are you, sister? Like, who the hell are you? That's what irked them. It wasn't that we had 4 questions. Like I say, the CBC had 4 questions. That didn't irk anybody because they were the right kind of questions, weren't they? Just unbelievable. Yeah, they call is that a new clip you've got there? Yeah, play this one if this is a new one. This is a good one.
If it's on time from seeing Jagmeet Singh at the podium. But Rosie, I'm curious what stood out to you, because at one point when some of those last questions came up, I just checked to make sure, yeah, no, we're in Canada. Because the identity politics questions
asking about transgenderism is un-Canadian.
This happens on the same day that the United Kingdom court ruled that women and sex
highly relevant news
and biological sex. True North is a very right-wing website.
They're not very right-wing. They're not more right-wing
there have
than
been
me.
issues in the past with who gets allowed into these scrums and who's allowed to ask questions of the leaders.
They won in court.
The commission,
just
the Debates Commission was the one who decided that these people were allowed to come in and ask these kinds of questions. So there you go.
These kind of questions, as in questions they don't like. Oh my God, you couldn't fit more pomposity per square inch, per cubic inch in my doppelganger, Rosemary Barton. Just incredible. Hey, you know what? Oh, let me just check to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You know, I'm not very good at the live streams because I don't pay attention to things I'm supposed to do, like, read out super chats and things. So I want to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do. But can I tell you something that I did last week that I didn't tell you about because I was so busy focused on the debates? Remember Buttongate? Buttongate. That's such a silly word, adding gate to any little kerfuffle. It's so dumb. But do you recall? Actually, we may as well play the video. It's only about 5 minutes, right? I want to show you what I was up to. Now, I was out there in Montreal, and I was totally focused on defending our team, handling the Debates Commission, fending off the jackals. Oh, I didn't finish that story. When Drea Humphrey was asking her question, it was like all the demonic jackals were hissing at her and heckling her. They were heckling her. Other journalists were heckling Drea. It wasn't picked up on her microphone. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. By the way, that's the exact behavior they accuse Rebel News of, when in fact it's them what does it. So I enjoyed being with our people. We all stayed in an Airbnb together, which is fun. I just love that. I mean, it's cheaper than a hotel. And of course, Alex Lavoie and our videographer, Guillaume Roy, are from Montreal, so they stayed at their own house. But the rest of us stayed at this Airbnb together, and it was really, I love that. It's like a dorm room or something, but just for 1 or 2 nights. So, and, making sure that we didn't get pushed around by the Debate Commission. But while that was all going on, we had another project in the works that we filed in the court. And let me show you a video I did while I was in Montreal. And I said to the team, just hold this for a few days because we're so busy with the debate stuff. Check out this video, which tells you what we are doing. I think you're going to really like this. Take a look. Hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here. I'm outside the CBC headquarters in Montreal, my stomping grounds. I'm kidding around. If I weren't here because of the leaders' debate, they would probably escort me off the property. But while we wait to go back in, they're just having the police dogs sniff around for any danger. I want to tell you about something I did today that's got nothing to do with this debates. Guys, I sued the Liberal Party of Canada today. You can find the lawsuit at a special website I set up called lawbreakers.ca, because I allege in that lawsuit, and it's only 10 pages long, it's a very quick read, I allege that the Liberal Party broke the law and violated my rights. Now, this isn't some cockamamie scheme. They stole from me. I don't know if you saw about a week ago, there was something called Buttongate. Turns out some liberal dirty tricksters from the war room went to a conservative conference and brought a bunch of sort of Trump paraphernalia and sort of pretended that it was conservative. What they were trying to do is make Pierre Poilievre look like a little mini MAGA guy, like a mini Trump. So they had all these pins and Trump stuff, and one of them were pins that said, little buttons that said, "Make Canada Great Again." And the idea was that, look at that, ha ha ha, Pierre Poilievre is just like Trump. But it wasn't any conservatives, and it certainly wasn't the Conservative Party. It was dirty tricksters from the Liberal war room. And I don't know if you remember, but Mark Carney was asked about this, and he pretty much confessed. But instead of firing these unethical folks, he just reassigned them. Did you see him say that?
Members of the Liberal war room, so the Central Campaign, distributed Stop the Steal buttons at a Conservative event. Given the anti-democratic implications of this phrase, how much does this event undermine the trust in the way that the Liberals operate? And what have you done in response to these revelations?
Thanks for the question. Look, this is totally unacceptable, to be absolutely clear. And I, on behalf of my campaign, I was unaware of this behavior, but on behalf of my campaign, I apologize for it unreservedly. Okay. I've made it absolutely clear to my campaign that this behavior or anything approximating it or in that spirit is unacceptable, cannot happen again.
Well, here's what they didn't think about when they did their dirty trick. Number one, I know from experience, if you publish campaign material and do not register with Elections Canada and have written on your stuff authorized by the Liberal Party, you're violating election law. It may not sound fair, but believe me, I went through it when I published my book, The Libranos. They chased me for years. And so I know if you're campaigning an election, you got to put authorized by so-and-so. But there's one more thing the Liberals did wrong. Make Canada great again? I don't know if you know that, but a few years ago, I trademarked that phrase. I had no idea that it would become a thing in the debate, but you can look it up. I registered the trademark to make Canada great again. And the Liberal dirty tricksters stole that from me. They stole my trademark without my permission. They made buttons without my permission, and they did it in violation of election law. Now, the thing is, Mark Carney could have taken responsibility and said this is wrong and fired them, but he didn't. He just reassigned them. Who knows what they're working on now? I'm suing because that's my property. Like it or not, I own Make Canada Great Again in Canada. They deliberately tried to confuse people to make it look like it was Pierre Poilievre or even me. I don't know. They violated election law. So I am suing them for violation of the trademark. And in the lawsuit, it's a very quick read. It's only 10 pages for violating election law and trademark law. Go see for it yourself. Here's what's interesting. I've sued the Liberal Party of Canada, but I've also sued John Doe 1 and John Doe 2. Those are obviously not real names. Those are placeholder names until we find out who actually did it. Are you a little bit curious? Oh, I sure am. Who was it that actually did this? Who gave the orders to do it? Who paid for it? Those are all very relevant things when it comes to getting damages from them for stealing my trademark, but also for violating election laws. Were there campaign managers in on it? Was Mark Carney himself briefed on it? Because all of that is going to be relevant, and all of that will be discoverable in this lawsuit. You might think, Ezra, let it go. It's just a little theft. It's like shoplifting. No. You missed the point. When the Prime Minister of the country, who's Prime Minister now and running to be reelected for the Prime Minister, waves and blinks and laughs at law breaking, we're in deep trouble. Now, Elections Canada would never do anything about this on their own, but you know what? I'm a Canadian and I've just filed the lawsuit. Go to lawbreakers.ca to check out the lawsuit yourself. And if you want to help me find out who the dirty tricksters are behind here and get a little justice, because no one else is going to, go to lawbreakers.ca and chip in a few dollars to help me cover the legal bills. Let's hold these Liberals accountable. God knows these regime media journalists won't. That's lawbreakers.ca. You know, what are the odds? When I first heard that phrase, make America great again, I thought that's a pretty good phrase. I remember Donald Trump saying it as he gave a speech when he came down that escalator, and I think it was Trump Tower. And I thought, yeah, America's been on the back foot for a long time under Barack Obama. It's losing a lot. It's losing wars. It's losing trade deals. It's just losing. It's getting kicked around. And I was, excited about Make America Great Again. And I thought, well, by gosh, we need to make Canada great again too. And when I applied for this trademark. It was 2016. And Canada was still pretty great. But I could just sort of tell that under Trudeau, things were going in the wrong direction. Here we are 10 years later. And oh my God, has it come down in the world from questions of prosperity and affordability, like all sorts of economic questions, to cultural cohesion. Trudeau's let in millions of people who do not like our Western freedom-oriented, peaceful ways. This country really needs to be made great again. And I know we don't use that kind of superlative language up here, but I thought, I'm going to trademark Make Canada Great Again because I got some ideas for it. And we sell some hats and we sell some buttons. But what are the odds that I actually trademarked that? And I never really told anyone that other than to enforce the trademark. Anyone who wants to sell Make Canada Great Again hats, we reach out to them and say, hey, that's our trademark. You can sign a licensing deal with us, or otherwise you can't do that. It's like Nike's Just Do It or KFC's Finger Licking Good. You just, like, it's a great phrase, but you can't use that without our permission. And by the way, we're happy to grant permission to people to sell Make Canada Great Again stuff. We just, we own it, so we just want a licensing fee. It's no big deal. So we are attentive to it that way, but I don't think I've made a big public fuss, politically about it. Legally, we enforce our rights, that's for sure. So why wouldn't I enforce my rights against this little thief? Mark Carney admitted this was his people. He said to Steve Chase and others, Steve Chase, a reporter at the Globe and Mail, that the staff who stole it have been reassigned. Really? So you didn't fire them? Yeah, put the headline up. You mean reassigned? So you said it's totally unacceptable. This is totally not who you are, but you haven't fired them or really disciplined them in any way. They've just been reassigned. Process of elimination tells me one of two things. Either Mark Carney doesn't really mean it by saying this is totally unacceptable, because he just did accept it. So either he doesn't mean it's totally unacceptable, or the people who did this, the people who were in on this, are the most senior people you could imagine, and Mark Carney could not afford to lose them. What if they're a campaign manager? What if they're chief of staff for Carney? What if it was a very, very senior person? Because remember, this wasn't some isolated, goofy, dirty trick. It was part of a strategic messaging plan by Mark Carney to call Pierre Poilievre a poodle of Donald Trump, to say that Pierre Poilievre was a MAGA. What was Chrystia Freeland's lame nickname that never took off? Maple MAGA. That is so lame. She's so bad at that. But they were trying to make it stick. And so they needed some sort of evidence. And so the evidence they furnished was, oh, look at these MAGA buttons. And they were telling journalists, oh, look at the kind of people Poilievre is. And you can see my beautiful Make Canada Great Again button on the right. Hey, there's one more thing. Look at these buttons. Do you notice something? They don't have written on them. Oh, yeah, perfect. They don't have written on them authorized by official agent for the Liberal Party of Canada. Have you noticed that legal fine print on every single lawn sign and every single pamphlet and every single ad in this election? You probably, it's in small print and it doesn't get in the way of things, but authorized by, because under the Elections Act, you have to put that on there. I know that because for Canada, the third-party campaign group that I created, says that on every single ad. If you don't say that, you're going to be prosecuted for breaking the law. So they were trying to deceive. Hey, can you call up the website itself? I want to read through it a little bit. From cover to cover, it's only 10 pages. What's the name of the website? Lawbreakers.ca. Pump it up. Let me see it. It's only 10 pages, including the title page and the back page. So really, this is an 8-page lawsuit. So you can see Rebel News Network, that's the plaintiff. That's who owns the trademark. And who are we suing? Look at that, the Federal Liberal Agency of Canada. Apparently, that's the legal name of the Liberal Party. And you see I'm suing John Doe 1 and John Doe 2. It's because I don't know their names. But I promise you we'll find out who they are. So the statement of claim, blah, blah, blah. This is just some legal boilerplate. Skip down to page number 2. Yeah, keep going. So actually, it's only 7 pages long. This is the first page of the claim. This action is brought against you. The plaintiff is Rebel News. We're claiming damages for passing off. That's what you call it under the Trademarks Act. We want $100,000 in damages, $100,000 for trademark infringement, an accounting of all products manufactured by the defendants or at their request that contain reference to our trademark, a mandatory order requiring the defendants to destroy all products, an interim order restraining them from doing more of this, a declaration that they broke the law of the Elections Act, and punitive damages of $250,000. And I'll explain why a little bit later. So, prejudgment interest, post-judgment interest, the cost of the proceeding, whatever else the court deems judge. Okay, here we are on page 4. Now, here's the real meat of the lawsuit. The plaintiff, Rebel News, is a federal company. Remember the Independent Press Gallery, blah, blah, blah. In 2016, Rebel News filed for the trademark for the slogan, Make Canada Great Again, as it relates to, among other things, paper and printed goods, leather and artificial leather goods, hooded goods, household goods, glass, clothing, footwear, headgear, telecommunications. On or about March 5th, 2019, Rebel News application was processed, and its trademark became a registered trademark. The defendant, the Federal Liberal Agency of Canada, is the chief agent of the Federal Liberal Party, an organization that operates, blah, blah, blah. Next page. The defendant, John Doe 1, is a political staffer. His identity is not known to us. Same with John Doe 2. Paragraph 7. The Canada Strong and Free Network held its annual national conference from April 9th to 12th at the Westin Hotel in Ottawa. The conference was founded in 2005 by Preston Manning. Conference featured a variety of speakers. The conference took place during the election. John Doe 1 and 2, at the request and with the participation of the Liberal Party, manufactured or caused to be manufactured buttons that had various slogans written on them that would be considered by most people to be conservative in nature. Slogans included Lock Justin Trudeau Up, Stop the Steal, There is no climate crisis, etc., etc. Keep going, next page. I'm almost done. The intention was that people would assume that the various buttons were manufactured and distributed by the Conservatives themselves or by the Canada Strong and Free Network. The purpose of the defendants manufacturing and placing these buttons was to associate the Federal Conservative Party of Canada and its candidates with American President Donald Trump in order to create negative publicity for the Conservatives and to assist the Liberal Party and its candidates' chances in the upcoming federal election. John Doe 1 purportedly admitted his involvement, and that of John Doe 2, in the operation to a member of the media, but later denied having said anything. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported that the concept for the operation came from the Liberal Party's war room. By manufacturing and distributing the buttons, the defendants infringed on the plaintiff's statutory rights to the registered trademark. The statutory cause of action for passing off requires 3 elements. The first is the existence of goodwill associated with valid trademark. The second is confusion or likely confusion. That was the deliberate part. And then the third is the actual or potential damages to the plaintiff. As noted above, some of the buttons use the registered trademark held by Rebel News. There is goodwill associated with it. Next page. Yeah, we signed a licensing deal with MCGA hats. So it's literally a valuable asset. This trademark is literally valuable because we're selling it. The defendants willfully created confusion in the minds of the public that the various buttons were manufactured and distributed by the Conservatives in order to create negative publicity. As a result of the confusion, Rebel News has suffered and will continue to suffer damages. Next paragraph, pursuant to Section 20 of the Trademark Act, our right to the exclusive use of the trademark is deemed to be infringed by any person who is not entitled to the use and who, among other things, sells, distributes, or advertises any goods, manufactures, causes to be manufactures, possesses any goods in association with its confusing trademark or trade name for the purpose of their sale or distribution. I'm not saying the Liberals were trying to sell them, but they were distributing them and they were using them as a political weapon. They might have been selling them too, I don't know. The defendants manufactured and distributed buttons which bear the registered trademark and is owned by Rebel News and without Rebel News' authorization in violation of our trademark rights. For this reason and others set out above, the defendants are liable to Rebel News for statutory trademark infringement. It's pretty open and shut. I mean, it would be like I'm Louis Vuitton and I catch some counterfeiter on the streets of Yonge and Dundas or Times Square selling some fake Rolex watches or something. In addition to being an infringement of the plaintiff's registered trademark, the defendant's conduct constitutes a breach of both Section 320 and 481 of the Canada Elections Act. That's just where you have to, well, I'll read it. The buttons constituted election advertising and failed to mention that the advertising was authorized by the Liberal Party. It's also an offense for a person to distribute, transmit, or publish any material that is purported to be made by a political party if it is done so with the intent of misleading the public into believing that it was made, distributed, transmitted, or published by that party. They're breaking the law. The Liberal Party later released a statement acknowledging that the conduct was, quote, totally unacceptable and apologizing for it unreservedly. I'm sorry, they said those words perhaps, but they did not mean it. The Liberal Party asserted that it was done merely to poke fun. That's so funny. A thinly veiled attempt to try to create a statutory defense of satire or parody. In reality, the object was neither satire nor parody, but rather to hurt the public image of the Conservative Party and its candidates to benefit the Liberal Party and its candidates. And we are going to go through the Liberal Party's records on this. Neither John Doe 1 nor John Doe 2 was fired by the Liberal Party, but instead purportedly reassigned. The defendant's conduct warrants the court's condemnation through a significant award of punitive and or exemplary damages, both as an expression of the court's reprimand and to discourage similar conduct. The plaintiffs propose this action be tried in the city of Toronto. And thus, I conclude the entire lawsuit. It's pretty brief, isn't it? Like, it really starts on page 3 and it finishes at the top of page 9. Scroll down. Is there anything else? Just the name of our lawyers and some name. Yeah. So that's about it. That's the lawsuit. What do you think? Feel free to let me know in super chats. I'm pretty pumped about this because, like, what are the odds? What are the odds that they stole something I owned? Pretty small. But obviously they didn't check. Like, we set up things from time to time. We set up projects or companies, and it's super cheap to do a search, a trademark search, a name search, and like, you could, if you had a lawyer, you could do it almost for free. Like, it's so quick. It's like you could even do it online, I bet. Go online right now and type Canada trademark search and then type in Make Canada Great Again. You don't need a lawyer. What am I saying? You can do it yourself. Everything's online these days. They knew what they were doing. They knew that their plan was to make it look like Pierre Poilievre was a mini MAGA, Maple MAGA, mini Trump poodle. That was their plan. And it just so happened that they were using a brand that I owned. And I spent thousands of dollars on that brand. And it's worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know the full value of it. I know we just signed a deal not long ago to sub-license the name. And the Liberal Party comes in and steals it. And I think if they were to steal it from most other people would say, oh, what are you going to do? It's the Prime Minister who stole from me. I don't have the time or money to sue the Prime Minister. I'm scared of the Prime Minister. I don't want to sue him. I'm just going to walk away and pretend I wasn't mugged by the Prime Minister. Yeah, we're a little different over here at Rebel News now, aren't we? I want to enforce my trademark. I tell you, I have been enforcing my trademark for years, actually. Anytime we detect someone selling Make Canada Great Again merch, we write to them very friendly. I'm not angry about it. I'm actually excited. In fact, I think the way we met this sub-licensor is they were doing it and we said, hey, look, I like your entrepreneurial spirit. You just don't know that I own that. Why don't you we'll just set up a deal and you keep selling them and make money. Yeah, but pay me a licensing fee. No big deal. Everyone's a winner. And so I'm not hostile to people who love the name too. Yeah, put this on the screen right now. This is the other company, right? So this are the people we licensed it to. Good for them. In fact, I encourage you to go and buy some. Classic red hat, wear it with pride, modern. Those are good looking hats. Sleek black MCGA. I like the blue one. Tell you, I mean, the red one is sort of, that's classic. The yellow one's in black and yellow, but just for my own aesthetic taste, I like the blue. Those are $50 hats. That's what you pay for a nice hat, a well done. How much was your hat? Oh, $50? Oh, $50. This shocked me. I mean, I'm not a big hat wearer, but so you can see the value in the trademark. And here comes Mark Carney, and he steals my logo. He steals my trademark. Those guys, those good guys, what's the URL? Let's sell them some hats. What's their URL? MCGA, Make Canada Great Again, hats.com or .ca? Both? Okay. Yeah, go buy a hat from those good guys. They're nice hats. We've got some of them here in the office. $50. Why should these hardworking Canadian guys at mcgahats.com, why should they follow the rules and pay the licensing fee and work their ass off to make a buck? And then the Prime Minister comes in and as some dirty trick, he steals the intellectual property from them because he's got some trick he wants to play on the Conservatives. Sorry, come to court and answer for yourselves. And by the way, John Doe 1 and John Doe 2, you're going to be giving me your name in court pretty soon. And by the way, Liberal Party of Canada, don't delete any emails. Don't delete any of that stuff. Because if you delete that and the judge finds out you deleted something, that's called spoliation. You spoiled things. You hid things from the court. And I promise you, however bad it is, it will look worse to the judge if you deleted it. What we need here is a lot of sunshine. The best disinfectant is sunshine. And we got to shine a light on it. And Mark Carney obviously doesn't want to fire the people who came up with this illegal scheme. He reassigned them. Oh, it's totally unacceptable, guys. Totally unacceptable. But he accepted it. He reassigned them. Hey, those unethical thieves, what are they being reassigned to? Like, what is so ethically unimportant that you put two totally unacceptable? You just said they're totally unacceptable. And you assign them to do more work for you? Holy moly, are you an ethical minefield? Super gross. Hey, I see some super chats coming in. Moonglow says, so nice to see Ezra, brilliant, brave man. Well, you're very kind. Alex Greer says, Attigo, Ezra. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm excited about that lawsuit. And here's the thing. That Buttongate moment passed in the media. It was like a couple days and it embarrassed Mark Carney. Not enough that he fired them, but it's over. Let me tell you something about lawsuits. They take years. And I get the feeling the Liberals are going to try and hide this one. They're going to try and do whatever it takes to cover up who the lawbreakers are. They're going to be tempted to delete things. They're going to be tempted to break the law and hide evidence. And I think they're probably going to be tempted to perjure themselves. Because I don't know how you square this is totally unacceptable with I've reassigned them to other important work on the campaign. I mean, if you're lying right there, I'm worried that dishonesty will color their response to the lawsuit. But I would just say to them, don't do it, fellas. What's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Just own up to it. You should have done that at the beginning. I'm guessing it was the campaign manager who was involved. Because understand, it wasn't a prank on the side. It wasn't a purposeless prank. It wasn't for parody or satire. It was to fuel their campaign theme that week, which is Pierre Poilievre is in league with Donald Trump, and this was part of it. I bet the campaign manager was up to his eyeballs in this, and it wouldn't surprise me if Mark Carney himself was. And you saw him say, I knew nothing about this. You saw him say that. I think Mark Carney is a serial liar. It's really weird to me the way that goes. Let me give a shout out to our 718 friends on Rumble. What a pleasure to have you with us. And on YouTube, 1,693 people there too. That's pretty fun. I was shocked last month to learn that after 8 years of punishing us, Google YouTube has suddenly decided to end their demonetization. Gee, I wonder if Donald Trump's reelection has anything to do with that craven, execrable company finally ending their illegal content-based censorship of us. What an atrocious, unethical company YouTube is. But after 8 years of starving us, we are monetized again. It's really weird. I hate YouTube and Google. I think they're dishonest. And I think back to when they had as their corporate motto, don't do evil or don't be evil. Do you want to Google that? Like they literally said, don't be evil. I mean, it was so stupid and childlike, but it was wonderful. And then they amended that. They redacted that. Because they know they knew that they were. Yeah, Google removes "Don't Be Evil" clause from its code of conduct. That's back in 2018? Is that what that says? Google's unofficial motto has long been the simple phrase "Don't be evil," but that's over. According to code of conduct that Google distributes to its employees, the phrase was removed sometime in late April or early May. Yeah, like no alarm bells went off for you guys. Like it's such a ethereal, vague, subjective statement, but you're genuinely worried that it doesn't apply anymore. Like it's so general, you could excuse almost anything, but in your mind, you're not doing it, so you remove "Don't be evil" from oh my God, they're so awful. It's 1:56. Let me just check if there's any super chats I have not read. I think we're okay. So yeah, if you're excited about that lawsuit, go over to lawbreakers.ca and chip in a few dollars. The Liberal Party's going to do everything they can to stop that. I think they made a mistake that they didn't even know they were making. They didn't bother to check the trademark because they had no plan to honor the trademark. They had no plan to follow the law. Like I say, they were violating elections law. They were doing a lot of things wrong. The whole thing was underhanded. I mean, talk about misinformation. This is what they call disinformation. Misinformation is typically a mistake. Disinformation is a deliberate mistake. When I was a kid, I actually heard the word disinformation when I was a youngster, because I sort of thought jet planes were pretty cool. And so I would read a magazine called Aviation Week in Space Technology, if you can believe it. It was just, frankly, it was just the really cool pictures of fighter jets. And this was during the Cold War. Like this was before, when there was a great rivalry between America and the Soviet Union. And one of the things that they talked about in Aviation Week was, how do we know what's true about American planes? Because what the American government sometimes would publish was deliberate false information to confuse the Soviets. So I first learned the word disinformation as a child. Can you believe it? And it applied to deliberate American, like they would lie about the speed of a jet, or they would lie about the defense capabilities of a jet, knowing that the Soviets were watching, to try and put them off guard. That's disinformation. So it's different from misinformation, which is more of like a typo or a mistake. So the Liberal Party, which talks about misinformation and disinformation, this was the worst, lowest ethical kind of disinformation, wasn't it? This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate attempt to deceive voters, and in greater proximity, to deceive journalists. They were doing this to deceive journalists, to go with the rhetorical narrative that Pierre Poilievre is a Canadian version of Donald Trump. This was a very important theme of the campaign. So this was a very important lie. And I am so looking forward to finding out who John Doe 1 and John Doe 2 are, and just how deep this goes. And obviously this will not happen before the election, which is 1 week away. I voted, by the way. I voted in the early election, the advance poll. Yeah, this is one lawsuit I'm very much looking forward to being illuminated by documentary discovery and asking questions of the Liberal Party and John Doe 1 and 2. That'll be neat. Well, it is 1:59. And I'm not sure if I did my duty in terms of like ads and stuff. By the way, I want to make a correction. It's mcgahats.ca, not .com. So MCGA, Make Canada Great Again, hats.ca. We sell them too in our store, but I want to give a shout out to the guys who actually paid for the trademark and aren't just stealing it like Mark Carney. Well, I see by the clock on the wall that it is coming up on 2 o'clock. I'm going to have a show tonight at 8 p.m. as I always do. We're just covering so many things coast to coast. It was a real pleasure to have the team together in Montreal. We're going to keep going to the finish line, and we might even have a few more surprises for you. On behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye. Thank you, and keep fighting for freedom.
Do you agree with me? It is time Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
Balls belong in women's sports, just as long as they're not attached to a biological male. Did you see the shameful moment in the Paris Olympics when Italian female boxer Angela Carini had to forfeit her match just seconds in because she was boxing against a biological male?
Solid straight right hand from Khalife there. About being pulled off by the referee.
It was shocking. Angela said she had to quit because she had never been punched so hard. Now, Rebel News, we've been fighting to keep women's spaces safe, especially women's sports. If you agree with us, then you will love our new t-shirt design. So you can proudly say that you think women shouldn't have to be beaten up by biological males in their own sports. Our design says no human balls in women's sports. It's a bit cheeky, and it lets people know you stand with Angela and all the other female athletes like her who deserve better. Go to rebelnewsstore.com now to order your t-shirt today. Balls belong